Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Carole Robin. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here this evening. How are you?
No, I'm great. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
You betcha. You were such a good sport. We're going to have to air you several months out, but you were willing to wait and come interview with me. And I'm so grateful because you're going to talk about your book, Connect, Building Exceptional Relationships with Family, Friends, and a transformative guide to building more fulfilling relationships with colleagues, friends, partners, and family based on the landmark Interpersonal Dynamics Touchy-Feely course at Stanford Graduate School of Business. So important because we talked before the interview how many people think they have connections with people when it's just a one text, a little text here, a little text there. And one guy was telling me, you know what's lost? The art of really connecting, maybe sending that real thoughtful postcard, that one flower. Someone sent me one flower in the mail. Oh my gosh, just so sweet for my birthday. But you know, something like that, those little things that really make those deeper connections. And it doesn't have to be hard.
It does not. And in fact, what you're talking about is that all the little examples you gave signal, I care. Mm-hmm. I see you. I want to be connected to you. It's really, I used to say it's not rocket science. And then I did a big thing at NASA, and all the scientists and engineers there said, "Oh God, Carole, this is so much harder than rocket science."
It's harder than rocket science.
But you know, it sounds obvious, and yet there is skill and competency required to really learning how to connect, especially with people that are different than you. It's easy to connect with people that are just like you and think just like you.
Interesting.
But you know, if we're really going to be successful in business, we can't afford to only do business with people that are just like us.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point, Carole. I recall there were times I've done business with people who were just really difficult to work with, doing advertisements or whatever. And, you know, I guess, like you say, when people think like you get them and you both get each other and it's easy breezy. But there'll be times where they don't think like you. You might see them as difficult, but you have a job to do. So how do you get it done and do it in a way that you come out with amicable terms and serve them the best you possibly can? And that's having that skill you talk about. Why? But I want to get from you, what is your perspective on why it's kind of been harder, it seems, in modern times to really build a deeper connection?
Well, I think there's a number of things that have conspired, even pre-COVID. I mean, obviously COVID, we can go back to that. Or maybe we'll start with that. COVID has actually resulted in people foregrounding task even more and backgrounding relationship. It's like, oh my God, I'm already exhausted. I've already spent, you know, God knows how many hours on Zoom. The last thing, we've got all this work we've got to transact. The last thing in the world I want to do is spend more time asking you how are your kids and what's going on and whatever happened with your mom and her broken hip. So it's like, let's just get the work done. So we become even more and more detached, less connected as a result of that. But even before COVID, I think that social media has actually hurt, not helped. Because, by the way, having, as we say in the book, having hundreds of friends on Facebook and putting a picture of yourself, you know, at dinner with your spouse all smiling.
Yeah.
Does that really tell people what's going on? Maybe that's the dinner where you decided you weren't going to have kids after all. Maybe that's the dinner where you decided maybe you needed to change your job. Wouldn't that be a much more meaningful thing to tell somebody who's your friend?
Yeah.
But a Facebook friend, most people aren't going to post that on Facebook.
Yeah.
And
wait, go. Yeah. I just felt something like, you know, I think what it is social media has become the place where you shine, where you only tell the good stuff. And then I've even gotten pictures. Oh man, she's just doing so awesome. I wish my life was that good. And it's all an illusion. It's only the good stuff.
Absolutely. And in fact, it's disconnecting. So if I had $1 for every time one of the founders that I work with a lot of Silicon Valley founders and CEOs. If I had $1 for every time I've heard them say how they're crushing it, when just under the surface, they are worried. They don't really feel comfortable asking for any help. They can't really say that they're struggling. I mean, they get trapped by this image of crushing it, just like you were just talking about on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then they just feel even more and more isolated,
yeah,
and unhappy and disconnected.
Interesting. Do you recall, Carole, when the whole social media thing started? I think it started more with blogging, the written blog like WordPress. Because, oh my gosh, maybe 15, 16 years ago, I started a blog called 101 Mistakes and What I Learned in Business. I was in corporate America at the time.
Yeah.
And I was literally going through different things I was learning in the office life where I'd screw up on this, but I learned this lesson. And it was from a self-help book I was doing, but it helped me kind of rewrite things in my head like, okay, this was a bad thing, but hey, this is what I learned from it.
Right.
And it took off. People were like, when is the book coming out? And it actually came out last year. It took a million years, but it finally came out. But the bottom line was when I first started posting the blog, people loved it, but at the same time they're like, how could you possibly put your mistakes out there? Why do people not like to show the not good side of themselves? What are they scared about?
Well, let's start with, fear sometimes is an acronym for false expectations appearing real.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we're afraid of is being judged. We're also afraid of being seen as weak if we're vulnerable. But let's think about this for a moment. Do you really want to work for somebody who's never vulnerable? Do you really want to work for somebody who never admits a mistake, who never asks for help? And by the way, if you show up that way as a leader, how are you going to expect other people to admit mistakes and ask for help? Yeah. So we end up with what we call these mental models, these beliefs and assumptions about how we need to show up in order to be seen leaderly. And then it turns out that those mental models don't always serve us. Let me give you a great example, personal example. In 1975, I went to work for a very large industrial automation company, probably the largest in the world. I was the first woman hired into a non-clerical job at this company. And I'm old, but the dinosaurs weren't roaming the earth. But anyway, and here's what I learned right away: whatever you do, no place for feelings. No place for feelings in the workplace. And I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm a reasonably quick learner, and that lesson served me initially in that people experienced me as being tough and getting the job done and skilled and hardworking, and I kept getting promoted. Now, fast forward, Christine, to 10 years. Now I'm running a $500 million, $50 million business. In those days, that was big money. And I'm at an offsite with my team, and I get kind of excited, and I get crickets. I'm like, hey, if we all pulled together, we could do this. It'd be really cool. Nothing. No reaction. I get a little more excited. Then finally, I'm really worked up, and one of the guys that works for me leans in and he says, Carole, is that like water in the corner of your eye? And he says, oh my God, are you going to cry? But then he said, are you really human after all?
Oh my.
And that's when I burst out crying. And I said, you don't think I'm effing human? Wow. I don't think there's anything more important for us to talk about than that. And I tore up our agenda, and we spent the next 2 days talking about who we were, what mattered to us, what we needed from each other, what we were hoping to create together. That's when we became a team. That's when I became a leader. Wow. And so I had overlearned a lesson. The leave your feelings in the parking lot by then was leaving the most important half of me in the parking lot, Christine. And had I burst out crying 2 weeks into the job, I would have probably never ended up managing a $50 million region. Had I burst out crying 2 months after starting with a new group, maybe not appropriate. But what happens is we overlearn. It's like Mark Twain said, a cat doesn't sit on a hot stove twice, but it never sits on a cold stove again either. So as leaders, we have to continuously update our beliefs and assumptions by testing whether or not they still serve us. And one of them is I've got to appear invincible, not vulnerable. In the book, we talk a lot about a concept called appropriate authenticity in business. And really in not just in business, but especially in business, which is not like, let me just TMI tell you everything.
Yeah.
But it is creating, being disclosing enough for you to know me at a level beneath the presented image. And that actually is likely to bring you closer to me. It's likely to make me more influential.
Yeah.
And it's going to build a better relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally can see that. Carole, you know what this got me going? You had mentioned how much Zoom has kind of over Zoomed people, and they're like, I don't want to talk to anyone anymore. I want to connect. But on the other hand, some of my business associates that I deal with, what we did this past Christmas is we got together just for some business meetings in the early evening, and one guy had a fireplace going in the background. I said, "Oh, show me what you got going on." He's taking his laptop, showing me his house, and all the other associates. And then, "Oh, let me show you my Christmas tree," says another. And then we're sitting there with hot chocolate, and it almost felt like we were at an offsite, just chilling by some ski resort, having hot chocolate and connecting as people.
Exactly.
And it was kind of, it wasn't planned, but I was like, we need to do more of this. Okay, next on the agenda.
Exactly. And in fact, you're pointing out something really interesting and important, which is leaders have to be more deliberate in creating that kind of thing. So some of the CEOs that have been through our Leaders in Tech program, and by the way, Leaders in Tech is really just an outgrowth of the course Touchy-Feely that the whole book is based on. But in Leaders in Tech, we have a norm where when we meet as a group, we start with something called "If You Really Knew Me." If you really knew me, ... And each person has a minute and a half to just say. So if I were to model that right now, if you really knew me, you would know that I have a brand new grandson. Now that doesn't feel terribly risky for me to say.
No.
But if you really knew me, if I wanted to take a little bit of a risk in service of you knowing me a little bit better, I would say that's a really good thing for the people in my life, because it gives me a chance to spread my obsessive compulsive neuroses across two things I care a lot about: my grandson and my book. Now you know me a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I've taken a little risk. But you see, a lot of people think it's a switch and it's a knob. So yes, disclosure is risky. I'm not going to deny that. But one of the things we talk about in the book is this idea of a 15% zone.
Interesting.
Risk, there's your safety zone. You don't think twice about saying that. There's your danger zone. In a million years, you would never say that.
Yeah.
But there's this zone in the middle called the zone of learning. And my students used to say, but Carole, the minute I get outside of my safety zone, how do I know I'm in the learning zone and haven't ended up in the danger zone? And that's where we came up with the 15% rule. Think about just stepping a little bit outside your comfort zone. You'll know, you'll feel it.
Yeah, trust me, you'll feel it.
Right? You'll feel it.
For some people, they are so used to being in the comfort zone that even a teeny bit will feel uncomfortable. And then you're like,
right.
Okay,
and that's fine. Just a little bit is fine, because you know what happens once you do that and you don't have a massive, terrible outcome? Your comfort zone becomes a little bigger. And then you can expand 15% beyond that. That's how we learn and grow.
Yeah.
And, that's why I don't know if this is relevant to anybody in Texas, but that's why in California, when you learn to ski, they don't put you on a double black diamond slope to start. That's like the most difficult mountain. But they also don't leave you on the bunny slope where there's like this little tiny gradual thing, because you never become a better skier. They take you up the level of difficulty a little bit at a time. So the same concept applies. I mean, that the three zones of comfort and learning come from educational research.
Yeah, and this makes so much sense because, my husband's a pilot, and he would say as he was training, he would go and do go out and do one thing. We're going to do one thing a little different to push me just a
Exactly.
teeny bit. And you keep doing it, it compounds. And now you get more and more uncomfortable. But before you know it, hey, I'm a master at whatever it is you're trying
Right.
to
Right.
accomplish. But here, what I love about the connection is that little impromptu chocolate hot chocolate night turned out to really get to know these associates as really real people and really cool people, and we all came out feeling a lot better and building, as we're talking about today, those more real true connections that you want to build with associates and friends and colleagues,
Totally.
so that not only do you help grow in business, but it just makes your life a lot more dynamic and better,
Well, richer, more
richer.
meaningful,
Mhm.
right? Every interaction with another human being is a potential for learning and for growth.
Yeah.
For yourself and for them and for
Mhm.
you together. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't think of anything more exciting. Yes, I'm a teacher, but wow, what a cool thing to do, to live your life looking for opportunities for more connection and
Mhm.
deeper, richer, more meaningful life.
Yeah,
Now, my hunch is that when you all sat around and had hot chocolate with a virtual fireplace in the background, the stuff you talked about
it's different.
was different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also what's gotten lost in Zoom era.
Yeah.
And we're into the business and the agenda and the task.
Absolutely. It's so true. We get stuck in the every humdrum. And even when you have the same old meetings, it's like, okay, so what's up with a la 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 la? And then we're just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's what's giving people, I don't know what they call it, like Zoom freeze, like, like, oh my gosh, too much Zoom. It's not because of it's too much screen time per se, because people were probably doing this before, the COVID thing happened anyway. It's really because they're not meaningful. And what you're talking about is bringing meaningfulness back to relationships. How can people get a copy of Connect and building exceptional relationships with family, friends, and colleagues? How can they do that?
Well, it's available on Amazon.
Mhm.
It's available both in written form as a textbook, it's not a textbook, it's a book, a hardcover. That's probably a better word. In fact, we very deliberately tried to stay away from making it academic. You learn the lessons by following what's happened to 5 different relationships,
Mhm.
and how they have deepened their relationships. A guy and a woman at work, 2 girlfriends that have been friends since college, some buddies, a married couple.
Mhm.
So you can get it at Amazon. If you don't, you can of course get it hardcover. It's narrated by David Bradford, my co-author, and me,
Mhm.
or on Kindle.
Wow.
You can go to our website called connectandrelate.com. It's not the name of the book, but that's the name of the website, connectandrelate.com. And there you get a lot of options on ordering it if you don't like Amazon. It's okay.
Yeah.
But also there is a downloadable free PDF where you can do a self-assessment on how good are you at this. You can give it to your friends and say, hey, this is how I see me. Is that how you see me?
Ooh, I love that.
You can download a free guide on how to bring together some friends or colleagues and read the book together and get the most out of the book together.
I'm seeing this is a great thing to bring to future meetings.
Yes. And I've got a number of clients who've actually given one to each of their team members, and they're actually working through the book together.
Ooh.
And honestly, I know this isn't going to air for a couple of months, but
Yeah.
this whole coming back to the hybrid and who's going to still be there and not, we have never needed these skills and tools more.
Yeah,
Never.
absolutely. You're right.
And the last thing that I'll say that's really important is that as we start to find our way back, we will do things that will bother others. And like I'll do something that's annoying, not deliberately, but the more you're armed with ways to tell me that that's annoying in a way that doesn't harm our relationship, but actually strengthens it because you care enough, the better off we're going to be. So it's not just about reciprocal disclosure and connection through that. It's also about caring enough about each other to say, that's the 3rd time you've interrupted me and I'm feeling annoyed. And I want you to know that, because I don't want to be annoyed. And I'm wondering whether there's something I'm doing that's making it hard to wait till I've finished. But people don't know how to even do that. Instead, they're like, damn it, I had another meeting with her and she interrupted me 70 times, and now I'm telling someone else that.
Yeah,
and I'm not even giving you an opportunity to know that I'm annoyed with you and do anything about it.
So will this coming back together, you think, bring more annoyance because people have been so frustrated, or, so that's what it is pretty much?
Well, I will say that annoyances are inevitable. They're unavoidable when we're interacting with each other. They've probably been annoyed on Zoom too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they have an even harder time naming any of that on Zoom.
Yeah.
But I think we have such a big opportunity for a reset in the way we're engaging with each other after the year and a half we've all lived through in this country.
Yeah, in the world.
Like, wow. Well, in the world, and especially in this country. And wow, what would it be like if we were all armed with the capacity to build more connection across differences, especially to get curious about each other, to suspend judgment of each other, to really learn how to connect? I think we would have a different world. We'd certainly have healthier, more robust families and schools and teams and organizations, maybe even a government.
Oh, yay, we can hope.
Dare I say.
Well, you're so right about that, because one thing I got from especially a lot of my single friends, see, I have a family, but if we're single and maybe on lockdown, it's been even more tremendously hard to really connect with people, because like I said, FaceTime is nothing compared to being able to touch and be with someone physically. So this connection and relating has never been more important. So everyone, please go to connectandrelate.com. Immediately get a copy of Connect so you can build those deep, meaningful relationships, and we can all come together and as you said, a reset for better connections in 2021 and onward. So I just have to thank you again, Carole. It's been a fabulous chat today on Savvy Broadcasting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and good luck to you.
Thank you. You too.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.